What's up, friends? My name is Pi. This is my best friend and business partner, Justin Lin. Welcome, Ja.
Thanks.
It's good to finally have you.
I know, it's been a while.
Okay, so this is head-to-head. We decided to do a new product review series. We want to do a lot more product reviews for you guys. And honestly, the format is going to be fairly simple. We have two of us reviewing a product because we're tired of single-sided reviews. On top of that, we don't even know, half the time people say things on YouTube, we don't know whether they're paid, sponsored, whatever it is. So here's our promise to you guys. Everything that we review is either on loan from Adorama or B&H. We are not paid or sponsored in any way, or we've actually purchased the items. We want to render honest and open opinions, and this is the other thing. You guys can find kind of spec-based, geeking out type reviews anywhere. I want you guys to actually walk away from each of these videos with an idea of what it's like to live with these products in everyday life. What are the things that you're actually going to notice? What are the things that impressed us, and what was difficult about these products? So, let's dive in.
Let's dive in.
It's good to have you here, my friend.
Thanks, Pi. So
it's been 10 years.
Happy
10
I
years.
could be here with you when you're sad. That makes you just feel so special every day. And
just stop talking there. Let me just say, so for the last 10 years, Justin has actually been focusing on lineage photography and managing our businesses, which I am appreciative of.
You know, just paying your bills, Pi.
He's given me the time to be able to do this with
celebrity.
You all. And now you get to play. So this little break has given us a chance to actually bring Justin on board, and we're super stoked to have him here. Our first product is the Fujifilm X100V. I had the product for about a week, and then you had it for a few days actually. Yeah. So let's go ahead and talk through it. First, just off the top, what you're getting is for $1,400, you are getting a fixed focal length rangefinder style camera. It's 26 megapixels. The lens is a 23 millimeter fixed focal length lens at a maximum aperture of f2. Now on this crop sensor camera, this behaves like a 35 millimeter lens on a full frame camera. So let's start from the top. I'm just gonna say, when I opened this up and I had it in my hands, I felt good. It made me feel good. I like products based on the way that they make me feel, and this made me feel good.
I'm glad, Pi. I'm so glad. Did it help you take better pictures?
Listen, I understand that you disagree, so let me just say, the styling is beautiful. It's small, it's compact. I like the fact that, you know, it's quirky, and we're going to talk about that in a second. It has what I would call soul. It has soul. But it's one of those cameras that you would take around, and once you got to your destination and you're eating lunch with your friends, I would actually put it on the table and show it off a little bit. You know what I mean?
Just up the cool factor, right? For sure.
It ups the cool factor.
It does look cool. I'll agree with you there. I'll give you 1 point, but that's the only point you're getting today.
Well, why don't you tell me, what was it like when you first started shooting with the camera?
I think overall, the form factor it's nice. You can fit in your pocket.
Yeah, I saw it in your pocket the first time I saw you using it.
Were you impressed?
I was first worried that you might be excited. But you were just excited to use your Fujifilm X100V in your pocket.
Oh yeah, excited for multiple reasons. And one of them being that, yeah. But it was great. I was heading out of the house and couldn't find a bag, you know, and I'm like, well, I'll just stick it in my pocket.
And you don't need a bag.
Don't need a bag. You know, that was definitely cool.
But I know the buttons, and you kept harping on the shutter speed, right?
Yeah. No, beyond, I mean, yeah, that was the only thing that was cool for me. Everything else was not cool. I mean, let me get started.
let me get warmed up.
Let me get warmed up here. No, I think, I swear you messed with the camera. Did you not mess with it when you gave it to me?
I did not mess with the camera, no.
Because there was 3 different places that you could adjust shutter speed with it.
Yep, that's how.
And I think that was the first thing that was like,
I believe out of the box, that's how it works.
that was odd. You know, you have your 3 dial, you have your index, your thumb, and then your top dial that you can adjust the ISO with.
Yep, each of these buttons. You have the master shutter speed, which is the top.
Right.
And then you have like incremental adjustments from the front and the back.
Which I think makes no sense, right? Like, from my perspective, I don't understand why you need to have a master, you know, shutter speed.
Soul, because it has soul.
Yes, if that's what soul looks like, I would consider.
I agree. There's certain things about it that feel more about the nostalgia than about the usability.
And you know that's why they put it in there.
For sure.
Right. And so that's the first thing. And then the next thing was the ISO, right? Trying to figure out how to adjust that thing. You know, pulling it up, I think first of all, there would be a question for me of durability. Like how many times can you pull that thing up and down before it breaks? Second thing was there's no tactile like feeling to it.
There's no clicking when it turns.
Yeah, it doesn't. So you don't really know. Like it's just this rolling.
Can I make a confession?
Sure.
I actually had to look up how to change that. So here's the way that I kind of function.
That's a problem.
When I
That's
get
a
new
problem
product,
right there.
Yeah, when I get a new product,
Yeah.
I want to like take it. I don't want to read the manual because most people aren't going to read the manual, right?
Right.
So I want to take it out and see how it feels just working with it and see what are the usability issues that I kind of run into. And I found everything like the aperture you control through the front lens, kind of like a retro camera, but the ISO, unless you remember rangefinder cameras and you remember what it was to shoot them, I couldn't figure it out. And I saw this little button and I was like, it says 160. I see it right there, but I can't figure out how to adjust it. Finally, I went online and I saw the person go beep. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Thanks for doing my job, Pi. Just keep talking. I like it.
I'm just saying.
Keep playing devil.
I'm just saying, you win a point. You get a point
Thank
there.
you. Thank you.
There's, there is,
What's the score, Mikey?
there is, so from the kind of usability side, there are compromises there.
Yeah.
When you're actually shooting and you bring the viewfinder up to your eye, unless you do some significant button customization, when you want to make adjustments to shutter speed and ISO as it comes, you do need to pull the camera away, make your adjustments, bring it back up, pull it away, or you simply look at the back and you keep doing this. Whereas with other cameras, you kind of get used to the keeping it at your face and making the necessary movements.
Which is huge, right? Yeah.
So for speed, that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you want to slow down, this will slow you down in a good way.
Forces you to slow down.
It slows you
It's
down.
never good when you're
slows you down
forced to
with
slow
soul.
down
Yeah, that's true.
and contemplate your soul. Yeah. You want that slowing down and speeding up to be a choice, Pi, not something you're forced into. So.
Hey, if it were
But
your
I
choice,
get your point.
you might
I get your
choose
point.
not
It makes
to.
you think. Forces you to stop and think. What ISO do I want to shoot this at?
If you're forced to meditate, you would. But if it's your choice, would you slow down enough to meditate? That's my argument for the Fuji X100V. Thank you very much, and that's why you should buy this camera.
Cut. It's a wrap.
All right, so I do kind of agree on that side that there are trade-offs. I do feel like in the area of usability, in the areas of, like kind of quick speed movement, that kind of stuff, you're trading off that side for the nostalgia. I do agree there.
It's meant to be a quick camera though, right? Pull it out of your pocket, turn it on, be able to shoot quickly. So
Yeah.
that's where I kind of take
Okay.
issue with that.
Well, let's move on to then actually shooting and taking pictures with it. I was very pleasantly pleased with the
Pleasantly pleased.
Pleasantly
Wow,
pleased.
Double P.
with the
Pleasantly pleased Pi.
the focus speeds. The eye tracker was doing a great job. The frame rate was nutso. I put it on to high speed and I was
Huge
getting
issue
like,
with that though.
what's that?
The buffering.
Okay.
Did you get that too?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, when you're shooting RAW, I think they put in UHS 1 versus UHS 2. So
I thought it was my card.
no.
I thought my card was too
No,
slow.
It's the camera.
Okay.
Outdated technology.
So that's
2020.
That's a major bummer. So if you are shooting raw, yeah, I was getting like 8 to 10 images, and then all of a sudden it goes click.
It just
click,
makes no sense though.
Slows down.
Why would you have 11 frames per second and not have? I mean, I guess if you're shooting JPEG, but why would you design that in?
I do agree.
Yeah.
If you're gonna shoot high speed, you're gonna use this for
Right.
sports and action, you really need to be shooting JPEG. If you're using RAW, it's gonna be frustrating because it is gonna be buffering quite a bit. That's a good point there. But otherwise, it was nice. It was getting really beautiful images. So look, I know you're gonna I know you're gonna poop on this before I even said it.
I'll let you speak.
But having the fixed focal length and not even worrying about the lenses, not even worrying about anything else, just focusing purely on composition, purely on moving my feet closer, moving my feet away. There's a beauty to that. I like that a lot, that I was just focusing on the craft itself versus anything else. Now go ahead. I know where you're going with this.
I get it. For me, you need variety, right? You're gonna get. I still remember way back one of the first weddings we shot like 10 years ago, and you shot. I believe it was a grand entrance on a prime, and you didn't move, and you just shot the same shot the entire time.
Each one looked nice though.
And we picked like one of them to use. Like I feel like
Hey, but that one, it was a good one.
it was all right. It was a very loose composition. It was like a bullseye or something. I can't remember. I just
Okay,
remember
so you're saying that there are some situations where you want.
yes, like no. What I'm saying is that you need variety, and you have to consciously be running back and forth. But the truth of the matter is that people don't really do that, right? That's the first thing. They're not going to move as much as they say they think they would.
should.
They should, but they're not going to. The second thing is, there's certain things with lenses like a 7200, the compression that gives you. like the example of shooting, when I took it out for a couple hours, we went out to a field on the way home, and the field was splotchy. And usually what I would do is I would bust out a 7200 or like my 105 or something and compress it so it seems like that's just a luscious field and you have this, this great.
Sounds like you need to find a new field.
You're like in Nebraska somewhere. Oh yeah, yeah. Instead of a commercial building where we're at a new field, yes. Make that happen, Pi. So with that, I got down and I was forced to compose, first of all, portrait, orientation versus landscape, because there's chain link fence over here, buildings over here, and I want to make it look like we were just in the wilderness somewhere. And I had to get lower, to make it look even more stacked, but then you're so low and she's so small, you're not getting as much as her. There's just compromises, and I
agree.
think, yeah.
I
A
think
few options would have been nice, I know they have you crop mode with it, but you're losing so much.
You're losing a lot of
resolution with
megapixels.
that.
There's only 26 megapixels in this. It's not like the $5,000 Leica Q2 that can go from 50 megapixels down to whatever 7 by cropping. But
that's when you can be super lazy.
I honestly, like, to an extent I agree with you, to an extent I very much disagree. Like I do like the movement of it. I love how this forces you to kind of work on composition. I like but there is a side of it.
You can work on composition though with any lens. I've always really not liked that argument where it's like, dislike the argument where it's like, oh yeah, just because you have a zoom lens you're not working on composition, right? Like any focal length you can work on composition. So what does that have to do?
Default to, like, when you're on a zoom lens, you just default to zooming in. That's like your first thing. The first thing that you do to tweak a composition.
Maybe
is to zoom in.
that's like the first time you're using a zoom lens, but after a while you're carefully deciding what to include and exclude from your image, and how you're going to line it up and everything, right? You want distortion, less distortion. I mean,
okay. So
not a good argument.
I do agree that there's
you can learn how to compose on any lens.
Yes, but then there's the fact that a lot of times the gear gets in the way, and having to switch things on and off, and not really understanding and not really knowing. So those things kind of can get in the way. But I do understand what you're saying. I would agree that you don't have, it's not like you get an 85 millimeter lens that you can pop onto a full frame camera and just shoot wide open and blur out everything. You don't have the compositional control, the depth control, those kind of things. And if you want to get that kind of blur out of this, you have to remember that you're on a fairly wide lens, you're on a crop sensor body, you're at f2, you got to get close to your subjects. You got to get close, you got to create separation in the background. There's work involved there versus other, but not all of us are lazy like you. You know what I mean?
Different point, but sure, I'll give you that one. You were talking about.
He's the least lazy person I know, to be honest. Okay, so I like those aspects. I can also see though that for you that I get what you're saying. Let's go ahead and talk about now the quality of the files that we're getting out of it. I was shooting everything raw. This is where, again, in post, I was very pleasantly surprised. I was throughout this entire time, I'm going back to myself going, is this a $1,400 camera? I mean, $1,400 isn't cheap, but it's compared to most $5,000 setups with the body and lens and all that kind of stuff, it's a fraction of the price. And the quality I was getting was incredible.
Yeah. This is a tough one for me being the devil here. I'm not going to say much.
Why don't you talk about our sister? Why don't you talk about what Jen said?
Yeah. I just took some basic pics with the camera and sent it out in our family text message thread. And my sister, first thing she says, "Oh my gosh, I really need to upgrade my iPhone." And so she assumed it was because I've been telling her about my 11 Pro and how it's I don't carry around a camera as often as I usually do, and just because it's so convenient to have my iPhone. And when you have kids, you're usually shooting just basic portraits. You're not doing crazy shoot throughs, and you don't need that foreground bokeh or anything really as much. And you're not doing anything super creative. You're just trying to get good expressions. And so I sent it out, and then that's the first thing she said. So that's all I have to say.
Well, that brings up a great point. You're a terrible photographer is one of them. But
we're gonna show the images, right? They're not horrible images.
They're good images.
They're good images. It's just,
you were just playing around with the camera,
but
it goes back to your point of you have to work with this camera with intention, and that's also my point.
Yeah.
You're approaching from the side of some people want the flexibility. I get that. I'm approaching from the side of it's nice to have to work from intention, but if you don't work with intention, you will end up with shots that look like they're from a mobile device.
Yeah.
Because it's a 35
You're just trying to say, you're just trying to get back to your point that I'm not a good photographer. I get it, Pi. It's okay. It's okay. I always tell everyone that Pi trains the world, and I train our studio, so it's fine. So it's all right.
Using my education, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Look, so
it's
the raw files are. I thought the raw files were great.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say they're horrible but my point is just most people won't be able, I mean, that's the biggest insult I think you could possibly receive, when it's saying, hey, look, it's comparable to an
Your
iPhone.
point is that if you're spending that money, you really have
Devil's
to
advocate, yeah.
process the RAWs.
It's got to be worth it.
It's okay.
Like 1400, I mean, I guess an iPhone costs 1200, so it's not that far off. But it does a bunch of other things, so. It doesn't just take pictures.
Did you lock the RAW files?
I'm not gonna say anything.
I like the RAW files.
They weren't bad. They weren't bad. I
Good
think,
detail.
yeah.
I thought they had great dynamic range. They were flexible. You get a lot of it pulled out. I get where you're going with it. That
I'll give you that. I'll give you that. The dynamic range is pretty decent on it.
Okay. So, but I do understand that, like, yes, there has to be intention there to actually process to get the most from the camera.
Right.
Okay. So let the record state that I win the point on quality images. It does put out really great quality images.
Like I said, I'll give you that point. That's fine.
I was very impressed with that. I actually had people, I was posting images to my Instagram and to other places, and I had people kind of saying things like, man, I can't wait to get a 5D4, because they know that I shoot a lot of 5D4 images. And it's impressive that you can get that kind of quality and those type of images out of a $1,400 camera.
Yeah.
So one other thing that I do like about this too is for those that are film enthusiasts buying into the Fujifilm system, you get the Fujifilm stocks built digitally into the camera. Don't even, like, I know.
Filters.
Like, is he
love
rolling his
filters.
eyes? He's rolling his eyes. It's
Love filters.
more than just filters. It's Fuji themselves that have simulated these filters.
Filters.
I'm not even gonna call it that. I'm gonna call it digital film. So if you like kind of getting to that film and that bright, airy, that kind of like film emulation look, and it doesn't have to, it can be more cinematic, more dark, all that kind of stuff. It's nice that it's built into the camera. That being said, if you're shooting RAW and whatnot, then
You're not
this is
gonna have
really
that.
for shooting JPEG and processing in camera and those
Right.
things.
Yeah, it's a pro and a con, right? It's a double-edged sword, right? Do you really want to have a filter that's already, I mean, you could shoot RAW plus JPEG, sure, right? You could do that, double up your storage.
I also love the color coming out of it. Like, just again, speaking back to that file thing, I thought it had really great colors. The color science of these cameras was fantastic.
But I think the double-edged sword is that you apply a filter to it, say you just shoot JPEG and you don't really like that style. You just don't have that flexibility, and you have to kind of stick with the generic style already once you shoot JPEG with one of the filters, just like anyone else. Like it just makes it so you're just like anyone else in the sense that you're applying the same filters, so you're gonna have very similar looks. Obviously, the way you shoot, the way you compose can differentiate your work. But it's more of a hobbyist thing, I think. So it's a gimmicky hobbyist thing.
There's one other thing that you cannot bash, and that's the fact that I get a built-in 4-stop ND filter just by swiping this little button right here.
That is pretty cool.
I'll admit that you did teach me how to use it.
It was pretty cool, but the weird thing is they didn't do it for cinema. You can't use it when you're shooting video.
Fair enough. That would be actually very necessary, and this is a good transition point. Let's talk about the cinema side. So we don't get the ND filter. That is kind of a big deal, and I think that's actually been
it's
talked
huge,
about
right?
online.
Yeah, when you're trying to shoot too well. I mean, that's one of the reasons you get something other than an iPhone. You want that depth of field.
Yeah.
Right. And you're going to shoot out like 1/50th, and how are you going to? The whole point is not to carry extra gear, to be portable, to be quick. And they missed on that point, which is huge.
They up the quality. You get 4K at 30 frames per second. You get 1080p at 120 frames per second. That's great.
That's nice.
We even get 10-bit output from the HDMI out. But I know you're going to talk about IBIS, the in-body stabilization.
No, that's the two main points they missed out on, like we mentioned, was the ND filter being available for video, and the second one is in-body stabilization, right? And those two things are like the two main things for video when you're talking about portability, right? Like you don't want to carry around a giant rig, you don't a gimbal just to carry around this tiny camera on top of it, right? Or have to carry out additional ND filters on top of lenses and things like that. That's the whole point of getting a smaller camera. But
it does kill.
I think it's just a huge miss on their part.
No, I would agree with you. It kills like the beauty of the portability, and honestly, if it had those things, it would kind of be like the content creator's dream. Like
great.
you just go different places and have such a tiny little setup and get really great files and imagery and video out of it.
No 4K slow-mo.
Yeah, now you're asking for too much though. You're not going to get 4K slow-mo out of this guy.
The iPhone does
for $1,400.
I sound like an iPhone fanboy, and I'm not. Don't get me wrong, but phones do that.
Okay.
4K slow-mo
I don't really
all day.
have. It's hard to argue that one.
So it's the technology's there. You know, they can do it.
Okay, look, let's come down to it. Who do you feel like this camera would be for? At $1,400, who do you feel like this is for?
My sister. I mean, that's when we talked about it and we started shooting, and the fact that she texted me and she's looking for a new phone, you know, a new iPhone's around $1,200. I'm like, $1,400. I mean, and my sister's not, she's someone that she wants to actually get better at photography too, though.
Yeah.
So I think that's important because I feel like with this camera, what's interesting about it, it doesn't have an aperture priority mode or a shutter, priority mode. You know, it forces you to kind of just like do it by default, right? Like you can set your aperture to auto, and then you can adjust your shutter, and then, there you are. You're in shutter priority mode, and then vice versa. You can set the shutter to auto, and then be messing around with the aperture, and then your aperture priority mode. Which I think that's great because you're not labeling certain modes and saying I'm shooting certain modes. You're just kind of learning the 3 ways to adjust exposure. So I think it's great. It's a great camera to learn with. Once you kind of start out with your filter phase and your auto phase, and you're just messing with all your filters, doing all that, and you're like, hey, you want more. You don't want to look like I'm just using a bunch of filters. And you want to actually step up and understand more about photography. This is the perfect camera to do it. Right, $1,400. Like I said, priced competitively with like a smartphone, but with way more functionality and obviously overall better image quality.
So I agree.
Yeah.
And disagree at the same time. I mean, I do agree with you that like Jen would be the perfect person, but the reason that Jen is the perfect person is the fact that you mentioned she wants to learn photography. She wants to learn how to do everything that you just mentioned. If you don't intend to learn composition and how to shoot raw and how to process your images and how to get the most from the camera, I do think you're better off with your phone. Like you're better off with your mobile device because otherwise you're gonna get images like this first starter set of like, the images that you're getting where it's like if an everyday person just picks it up and runs with it, that's what they're gonna get.
Right.
So I kind of feel like it's for 2 people. One is the amateur that wants to step in and begin learning photography and they want to take their files to that place. They want to take their images to that place. The other place I feel like it has a real good purpose is the enthusiast and pro kind of market. Like for those that are professionals or enthusiasts that understand and they know and they just want that smaller tool that's incredibly powerful for stills, this is a great option to me. Like for $1,400, this is fantastic. So
it's a good secondary, primary camera for the pro. So is that what you're trying to say?
Maybe.
I mean, it makes sense.
When I don't want to take a big kit around, I just want to focus on the artistry. I love this.
Yeah.
So this comes down to our final thing. Would you buy it?
No. It just doesn't fit in my, to me, and that's the short answer, right? Because like we get to play with so much gear, right? And already have some, so you ask, it's very specific, right? Because we're professionals that we shoot all the time and we have all the gears, we have access to all the gear, out there. And so it's like, it doesn't, I don't know where it fits, like it would just be one more thing for me. And you're talking to a guy that also has combined his phone case into a wallet, and also into a magnet, car mount, like, cause I don't want to carry stuff, right?
Yeah.
I hate carrying a bunch of stuff.
You're very much a less is more.
Total minimalist when it comes to this. And I just feel like that's just one more thing to carry.
Yeah.
If I have a hard enough time carrying my wallet, I'm not going to carry that, especially when it comes down to, if I'm like, because if I'm going to shoot, I'm going to go out and shoot.
For you, it's
I'm
not
gonna take
enough.
Yeah.
There's not enough of a difference
No.
between this versus this to merit taking this with you.
Not in terms of quality.
Okay.
Right? Obviously, I don't want to sound ignorant and say there's not a difference in quality. There's
No,
obviously a huge
I
difference
get
in
it.
quality. Yeah, it's just like, what am I going to do with these pictures? I'm huge on that, right? Because I'm totally anti, let's stack up, let's just keep taking a billion photos, sitting on hard drive forever, never looking at them, right? I hate that. That's like the thing I try to really avoid. So I feel like when I take that out, 11 frames a second, you're gonna be blasting a bunch of images that you're really not gonna, you don't really need that. It's just too much overkill. Like the memories, you're just trying to create and capture memories. At that point, you're not going for style and all that stuff. When you're going for that, just bring out the big boy camera.
Or you're gonna go
bring out the big boy camera. That's just how I am. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
What about you?
I would buy it. I would buy it. I love this camera.
I'm not surprised. For all of you guys that don't know, like Pi, always putting him on a budget, just then you know.
I
He would
have
buy
to
anything and
say,
everything. So
Like this, I
he
have
looks
to go
at it,
back to that
he
thing.
watches like a Burger King commercial.
So
and
wait,
then he runs out and he buys a Whopper immediately just because it looked good.
you're not.
And when they zoom in with the macro there and it's just like, you know, charbroiled.
I'm really.
And
he's
what did
not
you, wait,
wrong.
what did you just try?
He's
What did you just
not
try? You saw a
wrong.
commercial for
I
what
just tried
sandwich?
The Popeye spicy
Exactly.
chicken sandwich. For
So
the
I
very
mean,
first time. It wasn't as
Take
good
this
as I
with a
thought
grain
it
of salt when he says he would buy this.
Okay.
'Cause this guy.
Stop.
Okay. I'll let you talk.
He's not wrong, but stop. I like it. I like it. Like going back to my point is I love cameras and technology that makes me think different. And like that to me is what I characterize by soul. And this has that. It's small enough that I feel like it's a great intermediate step between my phone and between my full-size DSLR. It still gives me the quality images I would want from my DSLR without carrying it around with me. And for me personally, I like the purest approach of focusing just on composition and artistry. And that's the way that it makes me think different, and that's what I appreciate about it most. So yes, I would buy it. But you have two different perspectives now.
There you go.
So, all right, I appreciate you being here with me. I hope you guys had a good time watching. And well, if you guys liked the episode, comment down below. If you guys want to see more of Justin, which I hope you all do, please comment down below as well. I'm gonna try to convince him to, when things get back to normal, take time out of your day to be here so we can do more of these reviews.
It was fun. It was fun for sure.
It's good having you,
Appreciate
brother. All right, guys, we'll see y'all in the next episode.